Hello, my name is Ekello Herod, and it's official. GPT-5 has fallen into our lap. Hello, my name's Ekello Herod. I am with the Future Fiction Academy, and frankly, this is a very good day. This is a very, very good day because this is Thursday, the 7th. This week, we've had Claude 4.1 Opus, we've had Google Genie 3, and then we also, on the same day we got Genie 3, we got two open source models from OpenAI. So what I want to do today, create a scenario for you. What about the fact that writing with AI has always sort of been a struggle, but you could always rely on Claude. I know what you're saying. Claude, yes, Claude was the king. But EAW, Elizabeth Ann West, the illustrious leader over here at the Future Fiction Academy, has always believed wholeheartedly in ChatGPT. GPT-4. GPT-4o, she really likes o3. I tell you what, there's a new kid on the block, and that is GPT-5. Today, we're going to show you three things. Two things of writing, one on the playground, one inside of the actual desktop app. And then I'm going to show you a game that it had. And then we're going to finish the whole thing out with a cute little video made from the story. It's called The Morning Hunt. I had it spin this up, and I'm going to read some stuff to you. We're going to get all into it. So let's jump right in. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to start out in Playground. Now, what's interesting about Playground is that it is a completely different experience now, but still the same. It just looks weird when you first start it out. It looks like a chat and everything. I will not start it out like that because I've already spun this up so you can see exactly what it is. But you know what I'll do? I'll do this. And this is what you're greeted with right here when you first spin up ChatGPT. And you'll see here, I've got the sci-fi story right here. And it's a prompt that I built to help me create science fiction stories inside of Playground. And this thing looks completely different. So if you wanted to, you could start it up by hitting create and it would open up a whole thing. Or you could go down here to any of your saved prompts and you can click right there on your saved prompt. I actually built that today. So now let's imagine that I clicked this and I'm going to go over here and change. And this is what I decided to say. I want to be able to ideate fictional science fiction stories. I would like there to be a robust response to the ideas that I present. I want there to be very helpful responses when creating fictional worlds. And so I went over here and I created a fictional world. I haven't even read this yet. Okay, so I want y'all to remember that. I haven't actually read it yet. As a matter of fact, I spun up the story real quick. I kind of thought of a really quick little story, spun the story up real quick, and I started this video so that I could have the opportunity to show you exactly how and what this is. It's just, I'm just going to have to tell you right now, I am loving ChatGPT 5.0. GPT-5 it's amazing, at least in my opinion. I mean, sometimes it gets a little verbose, but that is probably something that you can get eventually fine-tune out of it. So let's go back. Let's go back. I know, I seem extremely excited. It's because I am. I want to create a story about two ninjas meeting in a rainy night in a back alley in Tokyo. Instead of fighting, they come up to each other as if they are going to fight and then shake hands and give each other hugs because they missed each other. They're good friends, but only at the end. What's interesting about this is it thought for 27 seconds. 27 seconds. I was actually surprised that it thought that long. But this is built to basically decide when and when not to think about an actual thing. It's one model to rule them all. As a matter of fact, I'll show you in the desktop, it really is one model to rule them all. But we'll get to that later. Thought for 27 seconds. Let's take a look at what it actually thought. It gives you this nice little window here that pops open. Now we'll read this. It says, crafting a ninja story. I need to write a story based on the prompt. Two ninjas meeting in a rainy alley, on a rainy Tokyo night in a back alley. Instead of fighting, they approach each other, shake hands, and hug because they're good friends who've missed each other. Although the user has shared the twist, I can still create a compelling narrative. I want to focus on vivid imagery, the rain, neon lights, and atmosphere. I must ensure to avoid any harmful content while keeping it engaging. Elaborating on story tension. I can imply tension in the story without actual violence, which is fine. I could include ninja weapons to add drama, but no graphic violence to keep it safe. Adding rich sensory details could enhance the narrative. The friendship relationship at the end means maintaining tension and misdirection throughout. Maybe the ninjas are from rival clans pretending to be enemies. This twist could lead to a strong ending where their friendship becomes clear. I'll aim for a word count between 800 and 1200 for a robust narrative. And then it just keeps thinking about the story and keeps going. I was very, very impressed with how it finally came up with this. I haven't read the story, so let's read the story now. Tokyo wrung out the sky like a towel that night, and the alley took all of the rents. Rain stitched the darkness from eaves to asphalt, pooling beneath a leaning Kenji sign that burned red through the curtain of water. Far above, a train shivered along an elevated track and left a fading hum in its wake. The alley itself was a narrow seam between lives. Behind a ramen shop, sweet with pork bones and garlic, between a shuttered bar, soft with paper lantern glow, and a convenience store that hummed to itself as if resisting sleep. The first figure arrived like a smudge you notice only after you've blinked. He dropped from a rusted fire escape, landed with a whisper, and let the rain disguise his breath. Black cloth drank the wet. The blade at his hip did not. He moved a hand to the guard and left it there, as much to warm his fingers as to communicate readiness. A stray cat peered from beneath a vending machine, decided he wasn't a danger, and resumed the serious work of being a cat in bad weather. He'd been there before, years before, when the alley was a corridor between freedom and a task he would complete because he had to, not because he wanted to. He'd lost a childhood taste for the glossy salt of takoyaki in the steam beyond, but not the memory of laughing noodles down when they were too hot. Memory, it turned out, handled heat better than tongue. A second figure slicked out of the darkness where the alley pinched tight. This one did not drop so much as condense. If the first moved like a blade, the second moved like an answer you don't want to hear. They stopped under opposing awnings that shook rain off in huffs. I could continue to read it, but it's a pretty long story, and it's so visually interesting. So much stuff going on. I'm having such a good time writing with this model. I think it's pretty amazing, and if you ask me, it writes pretty well. You can have your own judgment. You can take it to your own extremes, do what you want with it, but I'm telling you, I'm enjoying it like nobody else is enjoying it. Okay, this little thing right up here, I would like you to write a short story about a man who is doing his morning run and he is in a well-populated park. So there are people passing him all over the place. And when he goes around, he actually hears someone screaming around the corner, and he runs around the corner, and a werewolf or some kind of humanoid looking beast that also happens to look like it has a wolf head. It needs to be kind of an anamorphic wolf, is cornering two joggers, a male and a female. And he decides that he's going to attack it to stop it. And he runs up, and the beast grabs him by the neck before he can lunge on him. As the beast comes at him and starts to bowl him over and fall on top of him, he remembers his MMA training and flips him over. And then he and the other two joggers run away fast, and they start to get chased by this anamorphic werewolf thing. And he picks up a stick, and as the beast jumps and lunges at them, he turns around and falls onto his back while the beast lunges to jump on top of him, and it impales him, the beast. And every single thing that I said in this, it actually followed. So let's read the story. So I mean, it's got a cop in there and all of that stuff. So let's read this story for you. The morning hunt. The sun was still low, bleeding gold between the trees when Daniel hit his stride. He loved this park at dawn, the steady thump of sneakers on the gravel paths, the mingling smells of dew and coffee drifting from joggers with to-go cups. He passed an old man walking a beagle, a cluster of teenagers on rental scooters, and a woman in a pink windbreaker nodding along to her headphones. Then a scream. Not the kind of startled yelp from tripping over a rock. This was pure terror, raw and sharp, enough to freeze his feet mid-stride. It came from around the bend. Daniel's breath went shallow as adrenaline took over. He sprinted around the corner and saw it. The thing towered over two joggers, a man and a woman, with their backs against a mossy oak. Its body was man-shaped, corded with muscle, but its head, fur bristling, eyes burning gold. Its long claws gouged the bark behind the terrified couple. Daniel didn't think. He roared and charged. The beast spun on him with unnatural speed. One massive hand, too human in shape, too inhuman in strength, clamped around his throat, stopping him dead. The world narrowed to the crushing pressure and the stench of rotting meat. It drove forward, knocking him off balance, trying to bear him to the ground. Instinct cut through the fear. Years of MMA drilled into muscle memory. He planted a foot, twisted his hip, and rolled hard, using the beast's own weight against it. There was a thud, like a car crash. The creature slammed back first into a thick tree trunk, bark splintering. It snarled, momentarily stunned. "Run!" Daniel barked. The three of them bolted down the path, heart pounding. Branches whipped past. Behind them came a deep guttural growl. Then the sound of pursuit. The pounding footfalls grew closer. Daniel snapped up a fallen branch, long, thick, jagged at one end. It felt solid in his hand, heavier than he'd like, but he didn't have time to think. The beast lunged out of the bush, midair, claws outstretched. Daniel dropped back into the path, bracing the branch like a spear. The creature's full weight drove down onto it. There was a sickening scrunch as wood punctured through fur and flesh. The werewolf howled, thrashing. Daniel rolled clear, scrambled to his feet, and kept running. The couple was already ahead, pounding towards the tree line. They broke out of the woods into a wide clearing where a police cruiser had parked. An officer, tall, broad, his hand on his sidearm, stepped forward. "What the hell happened?" he demanded. Daniel was about to answer when a crashing came from behind. The cop drew his gun and strode into the trees. The next sounds came fast. A shout, a bone-snapping crack, gunshots, bang, 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 bang. A scream cut short. Silence. Daniel's breath rasped in his ears. The couple clung to each other. Then, from the shadows of the trees, it emerged. The branch was gone. The bullet wounds were gone. Its fur was wet and dark at the muzzle. Blood dripped onto the grass in slow, thick drops. It lowered itself, eyes locked on Daniel, and leapt. I even generated some pictures, which you probably saw as I was reading that, but that is a compelling story. At least in my brain, that is a compelling story. A really, really compelling story. I am so impressed with GPT-5. I think, personally, that it is one heck of a writer. I really do. But that is not the only thing it can do. Let me show you something in Plot Drive. It really, really does write well. In Plot Drive, I've got several examples. We're going to start out with the actual phrase. It's from a book I'm writing right now. This is a one little paragraph, okay? One little paragraph. I will show you how it changed the paragraph and made it better. The world exploded into white-hot chaos, pure energy flooding his retinas, gravitational forces that turned his stomach inside out, the sensations of falling through dimensions that had no name, time stretched like taffy, contracted like a spring, then snapped back into focus with a violence that rattled his brain against his skull. Now, what I did was I gave it a instruction. I said, I want you to make this visceral, and I want the reader to feel scared when they read this. And so this is the open source model, OSS 120, the big one, the big open source model that OpenAI put out. The universe ruptured in a blinding, searing flash. White, hot plasma hammered his eyes until they burned. A crushing, inverted gravity ripped his stomach clean out, and he was ripped into nameless screaming voids that clawed at his soul. Time warped, stretching like molten taffy, then snapping back in a brutal bone-shattering jolt that slammed his brain against his skull, leaving his thoughts a deafening chorus of screaming static. That's the open source model. This is the smaller open source model, the 20 billion parameter model. The universe detonated around him into a white-hot, roiling inferno. Raw photons shredded his retina until they burned like molten glass. Gravitational forces, merciless and visceral, crunched his gut until it felt bone and tendon being torn apart, and the world that had existed crumbled into unseen, nameless dimensions that hummed with ozone and burnt metal. Time stretched like a rubber band, pulsed, then snapped back into focus with a bone-shattering bang that slammed his consciousness into the hard shell of his skull. That was literally the smallest open source model that they put out. Here's the absolute smallest and super cheap, by the way, the absolute smallest GPT-5 version. This is called GPT Nano. The world detonated in a white-hot furnace of chaos, pure energy flooding his retinas, a searing metal rasped brightness that burned through his sight. Gravity slammed into him, turning his stomach inside out as he plummeted through dimensions that screamed names that didn't exist. Time stretched like viscous taffy, then snapped back with a brutal, jaw-splitting yank that hammered his brain against his skull. Now you'll notice these are two different models, and they have the same prompt, and they are completely different. This is Mini, a little more verbose all of a sudden, which is the a bit bigger model. The world detonated into searing white chaos as all-consuming light that shoved through his eyes like a molten metal and made the lids crack against his skull. It's very interesting that it put the skull thing up there. Gravity folded and snapped in on itself. His stomach lurched as if dropped down a well of teeth, organs sloshing against bone. Sound collapsed into a single high-pitched keening that filled his head, then fractured into a dozen jagged echoes that hammered his bones. He tasted ozone and hot copper, his tongue thick and foreign in his mouth. Space stretched and recoiled in nauseating, elastic gulps, angles and distances, warping until the submarine felt like a coffin and a cradle. Surfaces lost their edges and reappeared as smeared fluorescent trails. Every nerve screamed cold heat, pressure, sharp electric hisses beneath his skin until his senses were a raw, exposed nerve ending, and the only thing left was the raw animal terror of not having anywhere to land. Let's go to, this is GPT-5 chat, because for some weird reason I could not get GPT-5 to actually work, but it gives me a little thing in the beginning saying, here's what you requested, blah, 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 blah. But here's the actual passage. Very verbose, actually. Everything in between the line is the actual thing. The world detonated into white-hot ruin. Light, so blistering it felt like acid pouring directly into his eyes, searing down the optic nerves until his skull throbbed with molten brightness. A bone-deep vibration shuddered through the hull and into his marrow, as if the universe itself had gripped him, and it was shaking him apart molecule by molecule. Gravity didn't just shift, it wrenched at his insides, twisting stomach and intestines into knots before yanking them in opposite directions. An obscene tug of war between realities. He was falling apart, but not down. He was falling, but not down. It was a plummet through the direction that had no names. Shapes that only existed for the fraction of a second it took for them to wrathfully collapse in on themselves. His own heartbeat pounded in arrhythmic spurts, seeming to come from somewhere outside his body. Every nerve screamed high voltage panic. His jaw locked as if to keep his teeth from rattling free. Time elongated into a thin, quivering filament, then compressed without warning, crushing the breath from his lungs, before it all snapped back with the brutality of a snapped cable, whipping his consciousness into place so violently his brain felt like it had ricocheted off the inside of his skull. And every single one of these, y'all, are completely different, but so completely directed by and informed by the actual passage that I wrote in the first place. This is heaven to me. I am able to really think about the scene that I want to have unfold, and I can make it unfold in the most visceral and just heart-wrenching ways, scary, thoughtful, poignant. This is amazing. For the last but not least, y'all, we are going to look at what it can build, what it can truly, truly build when it's given the chance to do that. And what I have here is a piece of code. Let's see how many lines of code it wrote to make Tetris for me. 476 lines of code, and then it made Tetris. And it made it in JavaScript and HTML so that I could play it for you. And it did it in one shot. Now, I will show you something. Now, this is very interesting. I gave it an instruction. That instruction was, I want to create the game Tetris, and I want it to be you to use JavaScript and HTML, and I would like to make sure that it can be played by two people at the same time. So I want you to have two separate Tetrises on the side of each other. But if it's only, and I want a splash screen in the front of this whole thing. So the front end should have a splash screen before you get into the Tetris, which it didn't, which I wanted it to do, but you'll see. And then give the option for one player or two players. If two players hit, then I want it to have two screens so that you can compete against each other in real time. And that, I think, was the part that broke it. Because right here, yeah, it won't actually open this up. It won't open it up. It was a very, very long, and it broke it. But then I realized that I had kind of given it an impossible task. So I said, okay, looks like you are having a little bit of an issue with that. Why don't you just give me a Tetris game? And I would like it to have black background, and I would like the colors for each of the block combinations to be vibrant and interesting and no pastel. I want them to be bold colors, so make the whole thing with bold colors and make me happy. That was my instruction. With that, it gave me this. Like I said, I had 476 lines of code. And with that, I hit run in the corner. Ladies and gentlemen, with keyboards, I can actually, let's see, there it is. I can actually move stuff around. Flip it like that and actually play Tetris right in front of you. I'll be honest with you, I had to ask it to do a lot more of the Claude one. There we go. And it should take one away. And it keeps going. Colors are vibrant and it's on a black background. And the whole thing is friggin' awesome. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have for you today. Welcome to the new era of GPT-5. This is sponsored by the Future Fiction Academy. Please go over, click the links below. Right now, we have the YFD Bootcamp, yourfirstdraft.ai. You can go over there, click through the link below, and go over to Your First Draft, and then sign up for a class that is a $300 class that gets you 4 credits. You can do a lot with those 4 credits. Not just one novella with the 4 credits. You can do a lot with the 4 credits. I'm just having such a good time working around with GPT-5. So do me a favor, click down on below and get your butt in the boot camp so that you can learn how to use Your First Draft. Yes, that's right. If you click a button, you get a first draft. All right, everyone. I will see all of you in class.